It happened on an ordinary Friday, while I was picking up my 7-year-old son from aftercare. The playground was filled with laughter, autumn light, and the hum of distant traffic until my phone buzzed. Moving to Valencia with Adam. I emptied our savings. Good luck with the mortgage. For a heartbeat, the world froze. I looked at my son's small hands clutching a paper airplane, took one long breath, and typed back. Thanks for the heads up. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and stay till the end, because what happened when she landed overseas will shock you. The moment I read that message, everything around me blurred. The sounds of kids shouting, the creak of the swings, the thud of basketballs on concrete, all faded into a muffled hum, as if someone had dunked me underwater. The world had color a second ago. Now it was just gray and still. I remember staring at my phone screen so long that it dimmed and locked itself. My hands felt cold, though the car heater was still running. Moving to Valencia with Adam. The words replayed like a cruel echo inside my skull. She emptied our savings. Good luck with the mortgage. Ethan was still inside the aftercare center, probably showing off his paper airplane collection to his friends. I saw him through the window, his face lit up with joy. My son, my anchor. I couldn't let him see me unravel. When the staff opened the door and waved him out, I forced myself to smile. He ran toward me, his backpack bouncing behind him. Dad, look. It flew all the way across the room this time. I crouched down, looked at his hands, tiny, full of energy, innocence, hope, and smiled. That's awesome, buddy. You'll have to show me at home. My voice sounded calm, almost too calm. Inside, my pulse was hammering like a warning drum. We walked to the car. I buckled him in, got behind the wheel, and just sat there for a moment, staring at the road ahead. I could feel the weight of that text burning in my pocket, demanding attention. But instead, I looked in the rearview mirror. Ethan was humming softly, folding another paper airplane. That was when I exhaled, long and steady, and whispered the only thing that came to mind. Thanks for the heads up. I sent the message. Simple, cold, controlled. The drive home was quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful. It's thick, like fog, where every thought feels heavy. I drove past the grocery store where Claire and I used to shop every Sunday. The stoplight outside the movie theater where we'd taken Ethan to his first animated film. All these familiar places suddenly felt foreign, like I'd been teleported into someone else's life. Ethan noticed the silence. Dad, are you okay? Yeah, buddy, I said, forcing a smile. Just a long day at work. He nodded, satisfied with that answer, and went back to his humming. Kids believe what they're told because they trust. I envied that. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed Claire's car was gone. Not surprising, but the emptiness in the driveway hit me harder than I expected. It was like looking at a photo with someone cut out of it. Inside, everything was unnervingly clean. Too clean. Her favorite mug was missing. The framed photos from the hallway, half of them gone. Ethan ran to his room, tossing his backpack aside, completely unaware that our lives had just split open like an earthquake fault line. I stood in the kitchen, phone still in hand, and read the message again. Moving to Valencia with Adam. Adam. I remembered that name. 6 months ago, she'd mentioned working with an Adam on a freelance project. She'd called him a brilliant photographer from Spain. Back then, I thought nothing of it. We all have work friends. Now I realized that every late-night project call was a lie. Every client Zoom meeting was another hour of betrayal. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. I stood there, completely still, until I heard Ethan's voice. Dad, can we have spaghetti tonight? That snapped me back. Sure thing, champ. So I cooked. Boiled water, stirred sauce, grated cheese, like muscle memory. He told me about his day, about the rocket project and science club, about how his teacher said he was a natural problem solver. I listened, nodded, smiled when I had to. But behind that mask, my thoughts were spinning. Where was she now? On a plane? At an airport? Sitting beside him. Adam, the man who thought he could replace me? After dinner, I helped Ethan with his homework, tucked him into bed, and kissed his forehead. He fell asleep within minutes, peaceful, safe. I stood by the door and whispered to myself, you'll never see him hurt. Not if I can help it. When the house finally went quiet, I sat at the dining table and unlocked my laptop. My fingers hesitated above the keyboard. I wasn't ready for what I'd find, but I needed to know the truth. I logged into our joint bank account. Balance, $0. A single transaction listed. Transfer TO, Claire M. Account, $128,460. My throat went dry. That was everything. The emergency fund, the college savings, the home repair money, gone. I checked the mortgage autopay date. 5 days away. I had enough in my personal checking to cover 1 month. Maybe 2. After that, nothing. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. How do you even process something like that? Anger? Shock? Despair? None of them fit. What I felt was something quieter. Colder. Like the calm before a storm. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again, same result. I texted, "You took everything." What? No reply. So I sat there, staring at the dark screen, until I heard the soft creak of Ethan's bedroom door. "Dad, can I get some water?" "Sure, buddy," I said gently. I poured him a glass, walked him back to bed, tucked him in again. "Love you, kiddo." "Love you too, Dad." That tiny voice shattered me and saved me at the same time. When he fell asleep again, I sat on the porch in the cold night air, staring into the quiet street. I wasn't going to scream or punch walls or drink myself stupid. No, I was going to think, plan, move. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about survival, about my son. So I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my college friend, Matt, now a lawyer. "Emergency. Need advice. Claire just emptied our joint account." His reply came a few minutes later. "Call me first thing in the morning. Don't say anything to her. Don't touch the funds yet. We'll handle it." I locked my phone, stared at the dark street one more time, and whispered, "Okay, game on." The night was still. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. I leaned back in the chair, my breath fogging in the cold air, and made a silent promise. "You may have left, Claire, but you don't get to destroy me." I didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. I just sat in the dim kitchen with the laptop open, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. Every now and then, I'd check my phone, half expecting another message from Claire. But nothing came. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. Not just physically, emotionally. The kind of emptiness that settles in when the person you trusted most suddenly becomes a stranger. When the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, I made coffee. It was automatic, mechanical. The smell filled the kitchen, but it didn't warm anything inside me. I looked around. Half her things were gone. Her coat from the hook by the door. Her favorite scarf. Even the framed picture of us from our wedding gone. Ethan woke up early, rubbing his eyes, still half dreaming. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, champ." He looked around, puzzled. "Where's Mom?" I froze. The first real test. "She's visiting her family for a while," I said softly. "In Spain." His brow furrowed. "Spain? That's far." "Yeah," I said. "But she'll be okay." It wasn't entirely a lie. She was in Spain. Maybe with Adam. Maybe chasing some dream she thought I couldn't give her. I swallowed the bitterness before it showed on my face. Ethan didn't deserve to see that. I made him breakfast. Pancakes, the only thing that always made him smile. He talked about school, about his friend Dylan, about how he wanted to build a robot for the science fair. I listened, nodded, and made sure my voice stayed steady. When I dropped him off at school, I kissed the top of his head. "Have a great day, bud. I'll be here when you're done." He smiled. "Love you, Dad." Those 3 words were the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. Once he was inside, I drove to work. The drive felt longer than usual, every red light a chance for my mind to drift back to her. Claire, the woman who once laughed at my bad cooking, who danced barefoot in our kitchen on Friday nights, who swore she'd never hurt me. Now she'd taken everything. I pulled into the company parking lot, but didn't get out. My hand stayed on the steering wheel, gripping so tight that my knuckles turned white. I couldn't face my coworkers, not like this. So I called my boss, said Ethan was sick. He was understanding. That gave me one day to think. Back home, I sat down with my notebook, something I always used for work projects, and wrote the title at the top of a blank page, Crisis Plan. Underneath it, I made 3 columns. Finances, legal, emotional stability. I started filling it in like a project manager would handle an emergency. Finances, call the bank, report unauthorized transfer, freeze joint credit cards, move remaining funds from personal checking to new account. Mortgage payment, request temporary hardship extension. Legal, consult with Matt, lawyer. Document, all communication with Claire. Preserve bank records and texts. Emotional stability. Keep routine for Ethan. Exercise, eat, sleep. No impulsive actions. I looked at the list and felt something unfamiliar. Control. For the first time since that text, I had a direction. Around noon, I called Matt. He picked up immediately. Hey, Logan. You holding up? Barely, I admitted. She took everything. Left with some guy? Valencia. He exhaled sharply. All right. First thing, don't talk to her again unless through email. We'll need a record. I'll get paperwork started for asset recovery. And we might have a case for fraud since she transferred joint funds without consent. Can I get the money back? Maybe. Not all of it, but some. Depends how fast she moved it. I nodded, jotting everything down like a soldier following orders. Focus on your son, he said. You're the stable parent now. That matters more than anything in court. When I hung up, I felt a flicker of relief. A small one, but real. Someone was in my corner. That afternoon, I cleaned the house. Not because it needed cleaning, but because I needed something to do. I boxed up the rest of her clothes, her shoes, her perfume bottles. Every item was a ghost, whispering old promises. I stopped when I found one of her sketchbooks on the nightstand. It was full of drawings, faces, places, tiny notes in the margins. On the last page, there was a doodle of a sunrise and a single line beneath it. Freedom means nothing if you're running from yourself. I closed the book. I didn't know if she believed that anymore. By the time I picked up Ethan from school, I'd built a mask strong enough to pass as normal. He climbed into the car and started talking about his day before I even asked. I listened, smiled, laughed when he did. I couldn't let him see the cracks. Not yet. That night, after he went to bed, I checked the security camera footage. I had a hunch. Sure enough, around midnight the night before, Claire appeared on the screen, moving quickly, almost nervously. 2 suitcases. A duffel bag. She loaded them into a waiting Uber. She looked over her shoulder once, toward the house, then got in and left. I watched that moment 3 times. The way she hesitated, as if part of her knew this wasn't bravery, it was escape. When the video ended, I closed the laptop. My anger had cooled into something sharper, focus. She wanted freedom? She had it. But I wasn't going to be her collateral damage. I opened a new email draft addressed to her. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I typed. Claire, I hope you find what you're looking for. Ethan is safe and happy. Please don't contact him until I speak with my attorney. I reread it 3 times, then deleted it. Too soon. Too calm. Too raw. Instead, I turned off the computer, grabbed a blanket, and sat on the couch beside the flickering light of the TV. A rerun of some sitcom played, the laughter track echoing through the empty room. For a moment, I imagined her sitting in some airport lounge, sipping wine, convinced she'd escaped the dull husband and ordinary life. But the thing about running away is, you can only outrun guilt for so long. I glanced toward Ethan's closed bedroom door and whispered, "We'll be fine, kiddo. I promise." The next morning, I woke up with the first clear thought since the text. She thinks I'm broken. Let her believe that. The quieter I stay, the stronger I get. I got up, brewed coffee, packed Ethan's lunch, and walked outside. The air was crisp, cool. I took a long breath and whispered, "You made your move, Claire. Now it's my turn." The morning after felt strangely clear, like the fog had finally lifted and I could see the wreckage of my life spread out in front of me. The difference was, this time, I wasn't paralyzed by it. I had a plan. I woke up before the sun rose, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my notebook again. I flipped to a new page and wrote at the top, Day 1, Rebuild. There was something grounding about writing it down, as if naming the disaster gave me a kind of ownership over it. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, still half asleep, dragging his blanket. "Dad, it's Saturday. Why are you up so early?" I smiled faintly. "Just working on some stuff, buddy. You want pancakes again?" His sleepy grin was all the answer I needed. I made breakfast, cracked jokes, and tried to make things feel normal. Every moment I kept him smiling felt like a small victory. After breakfast, I turned on the cartoons for him and opened my laptop. It was time to deal with reality. First call, the bank. I spent over an hour on hold, listening to that same looping melody, until finally a representative picked up. Her name was Teresa, and she sounded like someone who'd seen every kind of financial disaster imaginable. "Mr. Carter," she said, "we've reviewed your report. You're correct. The transfer to your wife's individual account was unauthorized. Because it was within our system, there's a chance we can freeze or reverse some of the funds, but timing is critical. How much can we recover? I asked, already bracing myself. We can't promise anything, but potentially up to half, depending on international transfer laws. Half was better than nothing. I thanked her, took notes, and promised to follow every step she gave me. Next, I called the mortgage company. Explained that there'd been a family emergency. I didn't tell them the details. They didn't need to know about betrayal or Valencia or Adam. I just needed time. The representative was sympathetic. We can give you a 60-day grace period, Mr. Carter. That should buy you some breathing room. When I hung up, I exhaled deeply for what felt like the first time in days. Then came the security footage again. I watched her leaving the house, not because I wanted to torture myself, but because I needed to document the timeline. Matt had told me to keep every piece of evidence. Time of departure, number of bags, the rideshare receipt. All of it mattered legally. Ethan peeked around the corner. Dad, what are you watching? I closed the laptop quickly. Just checking the house cameras, buddy. Making sure everything's safe. He nodded, satisfied, and went back to his cartoons. When he wasn't looking, I opened my email and sent everything, screenshots, timestamps, bank logs, to Matt. Within minutes, he replied, "Perfect. This will help. Don't respond to her if she contacts you. I'll draft the first legal notice by Monday." The rest of the day, I forced myself to focus on the practical. Laundry, dishes, grocery run. Each mundane task felt like an act of defiance, like I was proving I could still function, still provide, still be a father. But every so often, I'd catch a whiff of her perfume from an old scarf she'd left behind, and it would hit me all over again. The ache, the disbelief, the memory of her laughter echoing through this same house not that long ago. That afternoon, I sat on the porch with a fresh cup of coffee, staring out at the quiet neighborhood. The sunlight was warm, the air smelled like cut grass, and for a strange moment, I felt almost peaceful. Maybe peace wasn't about pretending nothing had happened. Maybe it was about accepting that it had, and still choosing to breathe. Ethan came out with a soccer ball. "Dad, want to play?" "Sure," I said, standing up. We kicked the ball back and forth in the yard. His laughter echoed off the trees. It was the purest sound I'd heard all week. When the ball rolled under the porch, he crawled after it and found one of Claire's old gardening gloves. "Mom used to wear these," he said quietly. I knelt beside him. "Yeah, she loved gardening, remember? You and her planted those sunflowers together." He looked at the empty flower beds. "Can we plant new ones?" My throat tightened, but I smiled. "Yeah, buddy, we can." That night, after he went to bed, I sat outside again, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Claire and me at the beach. Her holding baby Ethan. Our first Christmas in this house. It felt like looking through a life that belonged to someone else. But something shifted in me that night. I realized that I didn't need to destroy her or punish her. The best revenge would be survival. I picked up my notebook and wrote, "Goal: protect Ethan. Rebuild life. Stay calm." Then, almost as an afterthought, I added one more line. "Never let anger make the decisions." I looked up at the stars and whispered, "You made your move, Claire. Now it's my turn." The next morning, I woke before dawn again. Routine was saving me. I packed Ethan's lunch, brewed my coffee, and called Matt first thing. "Logan," he said, "we've got movement." The bank froze about 40% of the funds. The rest, she probably transferred overseas. "We'll file to recover." I closed my eyes and nodded. "That's something, at least." He continued, "You're doing great, man. Most people in your situation would be breaking down. Keep it steady. This will work out." After the call, I walked outside. The sky was pale pink, the world quiet. For the first time, I noticed how still mornings could be when you weren't rushing through them. The weight on my chest was still there, but lighter now. Manageable. As I sipped my coffee, I thought about how Claire had once said she wanted a fresh start. Maybe she imagined herself sipping wine in a Spanish cafe, laughing with Adam, posting pictures of freedom. Let her, I thought. Let her have her dream. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was chasing peace. And somehow, that thought was enough to make me smile. By Monday morning, I'd done everything I could on my end. Bank reports filed, mortgage delayed, Ethan's routine stabilized. I'd taken the first punches, and I was still standing. But one thing kept eating at me like rust on metal. Who was Adam really? The name wasn't new. I remembered hearing it before, months ago, in passing. Claire had said, "Oh, Adam from the project sent over the files." At the time, it sounded harmless. But now, with everything she'd done, the name felt like a clue I had ignored. After I dropped Ethan at school, I came home, opened my laptop, and started digging. First, her email backups. I knew Claire well enough to guess she'd left something behind. She was creative, spontaneous, but careless with details. I logged into our shared cloud drive, the one we used for family photos and bills. She must have forgotten to unlink it. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Folders named Ethan's school, design clients, taxes. But then one folder caught my eye. Spain portfolio. Inside were dozens of photos. Beaches, cafe terraces, apartment interiors flooded with sunlight. And there he was, Adam. A tall, bearded guy in his mid-30s with a camera around his neck, posing with her in every other picture. Some were professional, others weren't. In one, she's laughing at something he said, her hand on his chest. In another, they're sitting together at a table, 2 glasses of wine between them, the caption under the photo file reading, "Freedom." It hit like a slow, cold knife. I clicked through more. Receipts for hotel bookings in Valencia, dated 2 weeks before she left. Digital contracts, invoices, tiny breadcrumbs of her secret life. And the emails. I read through them, one after another. "You make me feel alive again. Logan doesn't understand me the way you do. I'll be there soon, and we'll start over." Each line tightened my chest a little more. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling, and let the truth settle. She'd been planning this for months. Every late-night client call, every weekend project, a rehearsal for her escape. But then I noticed something else. One message, sent just 2 days before she left, stood out. "Adam, are you sure this is smart? You said your husband has access to the accounts." "Claire, don't worry. He never checks. He trusts me." That line flipped a switch inside me. I wasn't going to let her last words about me be, "He trusts me." I copied everything, screenshots, attachments, timestamps, and sent them to Matt. Within minutes, he replied, "Perfect. We'll use this to prove intent. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's calculated." He also mentioned that the funds Claire had transferred were still flagged internationally. There was a chance to reverse most of it before it hit her Spanish bank. "Keep calm," Matt said. "Let her think she got away with it." That line stuck with me. Let her think she won. For the next few days, I acted exactly as if nothing had changed. I went to work, cooked dinner for Ethan, helped him with homework. To him, everything was steady. To Claire, silence meant victory. But underneath that calm, I was quietly reclaiming control, step by step. I changed every password, redirected all bills to my name, transferred my paycheck to a new account, even contacted the credit bureau to put a fraud alert on my file. The more I rebuilt, the less she owned of me. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about Valencia. I started researching it out of curiosity: sun-drenched coastal city, historic markets, palm-lined streets. The kind of place people run to when they want to reinvent themselves. I found her Instagram. It hadn't been updated in a few days, but older posts showed the same images from her folder, her Spain portfolio. Captions like "Finding Myself" and "New Beginnings." Every post looked perfect, like a movie. But I knew what wasn't in those photos: the guilt, the fear, the instability. That night, while Ethan slept, I sat outside with my laptop and stared at one picture. Claire in a bright orange sundress, smiling against the Mediterranean sky. I whispered to the empty porch, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Claire." Then, a small voice in my head added, "Because when you land, the world won't look the same." Over the next week, I worked overtime at my job. My manager, Ben, knew something was wrong but didn't ask. He just said, "Take the extra hours if you need them." It helped. Every hour spent buried in spreadsheets kept me from sinking into my thoughts. At night, when the house was quiet, I'd sometimes hear echoes of her laugh. Memory ghosts. But instead of breaking me, they reminded me what I was rebuilding without her. One evening, Ethan brought me a drawing he'd made. It showed 3 stick figures: him, me, and a man with a beard standing by the ocean. "Who's that?" I asked gently. "That's the guy from Mom's phone. I saw his picture once." I stared at the drawing. "Do you like him?" Ethan shrugged. "He looks kind of mean." I smiled sadly. "Well, I think we'll be okay without him." He nodded and ran off to play. Kids have a way of cutting straight to the truth. After I tucked him in, I sat at the table with Matt's latest email. It outlined the legal steps, formal notification to Claire, freezing her assets, establishing custody groundwork. My reply was short. Do it. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. Still no word from her. I imagined her somewhere in Spain, maybe standing on a balcony, sipping wine, laughing with Adam, believing she'd outsmarted everyone. But she didn't know the message that was waiting for her account. The reversal request had been approved. The funds were already being clawed back. She just didn't know it yet. I shut off my phone, smiled faintly, and whispered to the darkness. Thanks for the heads up, Claire. The following weeks were strangely calm, like standing in the eye of a hurricane. The chaos was still there, swirling just outside, but I'd found the stillness in the middle of it. Claire probably imagined me pacing the house, cursing her name, losing sleep. She thought she'd left me broken. Instead, I'd started rebuilding, piece by piece, quietly, patiently. Every morning followed a rhythm. Wake up before dawn. Brew coffee. Make Ethan's lunch. Pack his bag. Drop him off at school with a smile. Then, between work calls and deadlines, I'd spend every spare minute tightening my defenses, emails, finances, paperwork. I changed passwords on everything. Closed our joint credit cards. Transferred ownership of the utilities and mortgage entirely into my name. It wasn't about punishment. It was about independence. I had to teach myself not to react emotionally. Because the truth was, every time I thought about her laughing somewhere with that man, a storm rose in my chest. But I'd promised myself, anger would not make my decisions. So I replaced it with strategy. One quiet night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat outside on the porch, sipping coffee, scrolling through her old messages again. I wasn't looking for pain anymore. I was looking for patterns, dates, clues, anything that could help Matt build a stronger case. When you look at betrayal long enough, it stops shocking you. It just becomes data. And once it's data, you can control it. The next morning, Claire's name popped up on my phone for the first time since that text. No words, just a missed call. My pulse spiked. For a second, I almost called back. But then I remembered what Matt said. Don't respond directly. Make her wonder what you know. So I didn't. I went about my day, smiling at Ethan's soccer practice, paying bills, answering work emails. The silence, I realized, was driving her crazier than any angry response ever could. 2 days later, an email came through. Subject: Are you seriously ignoring me? From Claire M. The message was short, defensive, written like someone who'd started doubting themselves. You don't get to act like the victim, Logan. I needed to leave. You wouldn't understand. Please don't try to interfere with my accounts. I read it twice, calm as still water. Then I typed a simple reply. I hope you find what you're looking for. And hit send. No anger. No questions. Just stillness. Let her think I'd accepted it. That same week, I received confirmation from Matt. The international bank reversal had gone through. The funds she'd taken were officially flagged as reclaimed assets, frozen until legal proceedings concluded. In other words, her new life had just lost its financial fuel. But she wouldn't know that until she tried to spend it. While that storm brewed overseas, I kept life steady at home. Ethan was thriving. We built a new weekend routine. Saturday morning pancakes, soccer practice, movie nights. He laughed more now. Slept better. Maybe he sensed that, despite everything, his world was still solid. One evening, after a long day, he asked out of nowhere, Dad, are you sad about Mom? I looked at him for a moment, unsure how to answer. Yeah, I said finally. Sometimes. But sadness doesn't mean we stop moving forward. You know how your coach says to keep running even when you fall? Same thing. He nodded, deep in thought. So we just keep running? Exactly, buddy. He smiled. Then I'll run with you. That night, after I tucked him in, I sat alone in the quiet living room. And for the first time in weeks, I let a tear fall. Not from pain, just release. In some strange way, her leaving had stripped my life bare. No illusions. No fake smiles. Just me and my son, and that was enough. Over the next month, I focused on rebuilding not just my finances, but my identity. I started running in the mornings again. Signed up for a woodworking class at the community center. Cooked meals from scratch. Things I'd stopped doing when I was constantly trying to make her happy. The silence from Claire stretched longer. I knew she must be growing uneasy. Because when someone like her doesn't get attention, they start to crumble. Then one morning, I woke to another email. Subject, what did you do? Message, I can't access the money, Logan. The bank says it's frozen. Do you know anything about this? I stared at the message for a long time, sipping my coffee. So, the storm had finally reached her. I typed back 3 words. Thanks for the heads up. And hit send. It was poetic. A full circle. I imagined her face when she read it. Confused, angry, terrified. She'd expected tears and begging. Instead, she got composure. That afternoon, I met with Matt again. We reviewed everything: financial statements, custody prep, legal updates. You're in great shape, he said. Keep your head down, stay consistent. She's unraveling, not you. That phrase stuck with me all day. She's unraveling, not you. Back home, Ethan was building a Lego fortress in the living room. He looked up and grinned. Dad, I made it super strong so no one can break in. I smiled. Smart kid. Yeah, he said. Because if bad guys come, I'll protect it. I laughed softly and knelt beside him. You know what, buddy? You already do. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened my phone and scrolled through her social media. She hadn't posted in days. The last photo was of a sunset over the ocean with the caption, "Freedom isn't free." I stared at that line for a while, then closed the app. No gloating. No revenge thrill. Just quiet closure. Let her chase freedom. I was chasing peace, and peace was winning. Still, I couldn't help wondering what was happening on her end, because I knew the next chapter wasn't going to be kind to her. When the foundations you build your life on are lies, all it takes is one truth to make everything collapse. And that truth was about to land with her 4,000 miles away when she touched down and checked her account. From the outside, Claire's new life must have looked perfect. Warm sunlight, a rented apartment overlooking the Mediterranean, cafes filled with laughter, markets bursting with color. She'd escaped. At least, that's what she told herself. I didn't need to imagine too hard what she was doing. I'd seen enough glimpses online to piece it together. Her Instagram showed the story she wanted the world to see. Wine glasses clinking, plates of seafood, hands intertwined with atoms over some European lunch. Captions like "New beginnings" and "Finally free." But what she didn't know was that her freedom was already running on borrowed time. The illusion had an expiration date, one tied directly to the frozen numbers in her bank account. While she posed for photos under palm trees, I was sitting at my kitchen table, calm as a monk, sipping coffee while emails from Matt rolled in. Funds officially reversed. Asset recovery confirmed. Legal notification sent. It was happening quietly, perfectly. By the time she realized it, it would already be too late. And it didn't give me satisfaction, not the way people imagine revenge feels. It was something quieter, cleaner, like putting a broken puzzle back into order, piece by piece. At night, after Ethan fell asleep, I'd sometimes scroll through her old posts, not because I missed her, but because I wanted to understand her mind. She always chased something shiny, new cities, new hobbies, new people, but she never stayed long enough to face herself. Now, in Valencia, she had everything she claimed to want: sunlight, novelty, escape. And yet, from what I'd heard through mutual acquaintances, it wasn't the paradise she'd pictured. One of Claire's old design clients, Lena, reached out to me by email a few weeks later. Logan, I'm sorry to bother you, but Claire messaged me asking for freelance work. She said things weren't going great in Spain. That was all she wrote, but it said everything. Adam's Instagram told the rest of the story. The photos shifted from romantic dinners to moody landscapes, then to solo portraits. No more pictures with Claire. No more hashtags about love. Just one cryptic post with the caption, "People show you who they are when the money runs out." I almost laughed when I read it. Almost. Meanwhile, back home, life had grown calm and rhythmic. Ethan and I were rebuilding our own world one day at a time. I found joy in the small things: his laughter when we watched old cartoons, the smell of pancakes on Saturday mornings, the way he hugged me goodnight without being asked. I wasn't the same man I'd been before the text message. I was quieter now, more deliberate, stronger. Every so often, I'd catch myself wondering if Claire ever thought about Ethan. Did she picture him walking to school with his backpack, or laughing at his science project? Or had she replaced those thoughts with sangria and sunsets? Then I'd remind myself, it didn't matter. She made her choice. The first message from her since the frozen account incident came late one evening. Claire, Logan, I don't understand what happened. The money's gone. The bank says it was reversed. How could you do that to me? I read it, set my phone down, and smiled faintly. I didn't reply. Some silences say more than words ever could. The next few days, more emails came, angry, desperate, pleading. You've ruined my life. I can't pay rent. Adam left. Do you even care? The part of me that used to love her flinched at the pain in her words. But then I remembered the look on Ethan's face the night I told him she was visiting family. I remembered the empty bank balance. The message that said, good luck with the mortgage. Compassion doesn't mean letting someone burn your house down twice. So I stayed silent. Through Matt, I learned that she'd tried to contest the reversal, but without legal standing, she couldn't touch a cent. Her Spanish account was flagged, her US one locked pending investigation. And Adam? He'd apparently disappeared after realizing her money was gone. According to one email forwarded by Lena, he'd left a note. This isn't what I signed up for. I imagined her reading that in their fancy little apartment, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and unpaid bills. The woman who had once said she felt trapped by my stability was now trapped by her own choices. But here's the thing. I didn't feel victorious. Just resolved. I wasn't out to destroy her. I was out to rebuild myself and protect my son. And that's exactly what I was doing. By the end of that month, I'd paid off the remaining mortgage balance with the recovered funds, moved Ethan into a new school with a better soccer program, and even managed to set aside a small savings account again. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was ours. Then, one evening, as I sat helping Ethan with his math homework, my phone buzzed again. Another email from Claire. This one was shorter. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I thought I wanted freedom, but I just ran away from myself. Please tell Ethan I love him. I read it twice. For a long moment, I just sat there, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because there was nothing left to say. She needed to face her own reflection, just like I had faced mine. That night, as Ethan slept, I stood by his bedroom door and whispered, "We're okay, kiddo. We're gonna be okay." I walked outside, looked up at the clear night sky, and thought about the ocean that separated us now. Her world was collapsing, but mine was finally steady. And in that silence, I understood something important. You can't build peace on someone else's chaos. The next morning, I got a message from Matt confirming the last piece of the puzzle. Case settled. Everything's in your name. She has no claim left. I stared at the message for a long moment before smiling to myself. No gloating. No bitterness. Just closure. Somewhere across the world, Claire was probably packing her things again, looking for another place to start over. But wherever she went next, she'd have to carry her choices with her. As for me and Ethan, we were already home. When she boarded that plane to Valencia, Claire must have thought she'd won. She probably smiled as the city lights faded beneath the clouds, believing she'd outsmarted me, believing her new life was waiting just beyond the Atlantic. I can imagine her there, champagne in hand, window seat, earbuds in, dreaming of beaches and freedom. She had no idea the story was already writing a different ending. Because while she slept through the flight, the bank's reversal went through. While she dreamed of fresh starts, the balance she'd stolen was silently clawed back, one transaction at a time. And by the time the wheels touched Spanish soil, freedom had turned to zero. She landed in Valencia, pulled out her phone, and opened her banking app. Declined. Declined. Balance, $0. I wasn't there to see her face, but I've pictured it 1,000 times. The sudden silence, the disbelief, the dawning realization that everything she'd built her fantasy on was gone. And while that moment unfolded across the ocean, I was standing in my kitchen making breakfast for Ethan. He was talking about dinosaurs between spoonfuls of cereal, and I was smiling, calm, steady. The world had balanced itself out again. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. Claire, what did you do, Logan? The money's gone. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed the same words she'd read weeks earlier. Thanks for the heads up. Send. No explanations. No anger. Just symmetry. After that, she sent a few more messages, first furious, then begging, then quiet. I didn't answer any of them. There's a kind of peace that comes from silence, and I wasn't about to trade it for another argument. Weeks turned into months. She faded further into the background with each passing day. Occasionally, a new email would appear, apologies, updates, questions, but I never replied. I forwarded them to Matt, then went back to my life. I had bigger things to focus on. Ethan's laughter, my morning runs, the smell of coffee in a clean kitchen that finally felt like mine. One Saturday, almost 6 months later, Ethan and I were in the park. The sun was bright, the air cool, the sound of kids' laughter floating everywhere. He was learning to ride his bike without training wheels. I ran beside him, holding the seat, whispering encouragement. "Don't look down, buddy. Look where you want to go." He wobbled, steadied himself, and for a few glorious seconds, he was riding on his own. He laughed, shouting, "Dad, I'm doing it." "Yeah, you are," I said, breathless, proud, alive. That moment, right there, was everything I'd been fighting for. Not revenge, not money, just this. The simple joy of watching my son move forward without fear. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. The same porch where months ago I'd sat broken and lost. Now it felt like a different world. The sky was clear. The house was quiet. My heart was, too. I thought about Claire for the first time in a while, not with anger, but with distance. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't wish her back. I just hoped she'd finally understand what freedom really meant. Not running away, but facing what you've done and building something honest. The next morning, I opened the mailbox and found a postcard. No return address. Just an image of the Valencia coast at sunset and a short message scrawled across the back. "I hope you and Ethan are happy." No signature, but I didn't need one. I smiled, set the postcard on the counter, and whispered, "We are." I slipped it into a drawer, one last piece of the past tucked neatly away, and went outside to start the day. The sun was warm, the air smelled like cut grass, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, quietly free. Closing message, YouTube narration style. And that's how it happened. A text that shattered my world, a choice that rebuilt it, and the silence that said everything words never could. Sometimes life doesn't give you the ending you wanted. It gives you the one you needed. I didn't win by fighting back. I won by standing still, by protecting my son, and by letting time deliver the lesson on its own. Now I want to ask you something. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have stayed silent or confronted her head on? Tell me your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit you somewhere deep or made you think about what strength really means, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for watching, for feeling this with me, and for standing through every chapter of this journey. Until next time, take care of yourself, protect your peace, and remember, sometimes the calmest reply says more than 1,000 words. Good night, everyone.